Hey, hi, hello. Is Todd ready?
Yeah, we're filming.
Hello, welcome to Life with a Brand. Tyler McKnight, Kevin Wade. We have a great show for you today. Our topic comes from Kevin Wade.
Yes.
And Kevin, you want to go ahead and introduce what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, so this topic kind of came about in a little bit of a boring way. We were putting together some trend reports moving into fourth quarter for some clients. Very fun, numbery type stuff. But we started looking back at what some sources had called the key trends for 2017.
Yes.
And we were looking back through, and kind of more than halfway through the year, we thought, are these still holding up? So I thought we'd go through them. There are three big trends that come from ComScore, one of the data companies we pull from. And I thought it was very, very interesting to see how this has kind of taken place. Because you read these at the beginning of the year, and it's kind of like a weatherman making observations, and you're just like, well, these could hold up, these could not. Like, these are some very surface level just recommendations and ideas. So how have they held up further on into the year? So
That's actually a really good analogy for the way we can forecast digital media, because when weathermen forecast things, you're like, okay, I trust them, this is going to happen. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does.
Yeah. Or you're the other way around, and you're part of that group that says, all right, they can say this, but now prove it to me. And then when it doesn't happen, they're like, see, I told you. But that's kind of the great thing about digital, is it is very analytics-based. So you really can take a look at trends and see where they're going and where they've been and make some pretty accurate forecasts. So the first one here is called the maturation of mobile. We basically discovered last year that for the first time ever, mobile overtook desktop as far as all search traffic on the internet. It's crazy, and that's continued to be the case into 2017. And so basically the maturation of mobile as a key trend basically talks about the advances in device technology, and how they're not kind of taking these big leaps anymore, how they're kind of growing more incrementally.
It's plateaued for the most part.
Yeah, and so now it's not jumping on as an early adopter or as someone who has the new latest thing and how do we take advantage of this. It's making these little incremental changes to the way that you either as a consumer are using these devices, or as an advertiser, how you are utilizing the advertising potential of the devices. So it's interesting. Everything's becoming much more niche.
Now, as far as the mobile device goes, from a social media standpoint, as far as Facebook Ads Manager goes, it actually will automatically place your ads on devices. So if people are more likely to engage on a mobile device, Facebook automatically pushes them that way. So we have seen actually those numbers grow, but they are also starting to plateau. So this has a lot of data to back it up, not only from ComScore, who does reporting
from everywhere,
and whatever, but we have seen it with our own. I mean, Google AdWords, Facebook,
how
ads.
It's placing on mobile and tablet. And it's funny because mobile is still growing, but tablets are actually not. Not to say that like the tablets themselves are kind of a fad. It's just that they've kind of reached the level of utility that they're kind of staying at. Businesses are starting, or companies are starting to realize, I think, that there's a very specific way that people like doing things now. In the era of touchscreens, in the era of instant communication, in the era of computing from a lot of different devices, it's kind of plateaued there. So mobile's still growing. Tablets are actually... the tablet industry is almost completely plateaued.
Let me make a generalization real quick. So this is something I've noticed, and it's just from going on family trips and being at the office with people in different age groups. But what I've noticed is people from Generation X haven't fully adopted mobile. So they've kind of gone into tablets. My mom does everything from her iPad. My dad does everything from his iPad.
So it's almost like a happy middle ground.
There's an employee here who I work with that uses her iPad for everything.
Yeah.
And it's funny to me because she'll say, well, I can't see this on my iPad. I'm like, well, nobody's really using their iPads to discover. But I think something we've forgotten is that Generation X still uses an iPad, which is
like the size of a desktop computer. It's a little bit more familiar
but it's mobile.
To them.
You can take it with you anywhere. And it's just interesting to watch. Like, my mom will whip out her iPad and I'll whip out my iPhone. She Instagram on her iPad. And I think it might be because it's bigger.
Oh,
she can
most
see it.
Definitely.
She holds it out like she's reading a menu at every shot. But
that's interesting.
So I don't think tablets have died out, and I think...
Oh, no, not died out, just kind of plateaued in their usage and in their development.
But I don't think they're ever going to overtake mobile.
No, definitely not.
But I do know that Apple is in the process of developing a tablet that is going to have the full power of a desktop, but you can still make it mobile, and it'll have... I mean, it's going to be pretty impressive.
So kind of like a Surface, but maybe even a little more powerful.
Yeah. And I think they're going to... That tablet is going to replace desktop, and we're going to see those numbers trend a little bit up, but mobile is still going to stay on top as desktop is weeded out. But I think those desktop users are going to turn into tablet users.
Oh, absolutely.
That's my forecast.
The desktop computers turn into the laptop, and the tablet and laptop are getting closer. So that'll be interesting to see. So one of the key takeaways from this first point, I think, about mobile not really slowing down but kind of leveling out, is that it's now time for the economics to catch up with the behavior. So as this digital revolution has happened, consumer usage trends, they always shift faster than the dollars do. So now that the consumer usage trends are kind of leveling out, it's time for the economy to jump on this and adapt to it.
So here's something interesting. Yeah. And this was a complete accident. I accidentally swiped two fingers and it brought up the stock, but obviously you got the Dow, the NASDAQ. Yeah. But in the top, you got Apple and Google, which are two digital
companies,
and it's just interesting
who are doing their own laptops.
Right, and as far as economics go, people are starting to realize, hey, maybe the money is in digital in all those interactive companies. Sorry, go ahead though.
No, you're good. Number 2, a cross-platform ecosystem. So this is something we've been seeing a lot. I know when I was in college, they were always talking about the emergence of cross-platform advertising and cross-platform media. So people are basically using all sorts of different, kind of like we just talked about, whether it's a tablet or a desktop or a laptop or a smartphone or any of these other things. We're living in a multi-screen society, multi-platform society. Another big thing that I saw here when I was reading through this was kind of the multi-screen viewing trend, where when I watch television, I've got my laptop in my lap and my smartphone in my hand. You know, that's like Saturday afternoons in the summer for golf and messing around on, YouTube, and then like texting people. It's like you have 3 screens in front of you the entire time.
Fantasy football has changed the way people advertise. I mean, I have my iPad out with my fantasy football team.
Yeah.
I have my phone out with the scores, and I have my TV on so I can actually watch it in real time. So think of it this way. That is 3 impressions per one person reached. So advertisers are placing on all 3 different platforms. But the great thing is that ESPN can place an ad on TV that's different than the ad they place on a desktop, and then an ad that they place on a tablet versus a phone. So they can hit you with 4 different ads, but they're... the share of voice doesn't really...
And that's where the tradigital advertising methodology comes in. We talk a lot here at the office and some on the show about tradigital, traditional and digital working together, because, you can reach, if you place an ad on all 3 of those platforms, traditional television, digital, and desktop digital, and mobile digital, you're reaching them in a way that has much higher ROI that's greater than the sum of its parts. And that's what all of this cross-platform ecosystem talk is talking about, is take advantage of that cross-platform era that we're in, and then seeing how that evolves, and not just placing places you used to, not just advertising places you used to and where you're comfortable advertising, but stepping out and playing with different platforms.
But even something I've noticed is traditional media has become sort of quantifiable. I've noticed on analytics when I'm looking on for our websites that it'll come from a TV OS device, or it'll come from a smart TV. Yeah. And that has kind of revolutionized the way traditional media sells ads, because they were able to say, this is how many people viewed your ad and clicked through.
There's digitally quantifiable ways of quantifying television.
Like I'm laying in bed watching Hulu, I get an ad. Now, let's be real, I paid to not see those ads. So when I didn't pay, I would navigate with my remote, click the ad, and it would take me through to a browser. I mean,
But that still counts as on your television. But then is that digital or traditional? Because it's a digital platform.
Here's what it is. Tradigital.
Hey, there you go. There's that word again.
And I think that even though that word can be used in so many different places in the digital or traditional media, but in that case, I think it's tradigital to the aspect of you are watching something in a traditional manner, but you engage with it digitally. if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of goes right into the third point here, where the third trend that they saw moving into 2017 is advertising gets back to the basics. This is where we see the need for a tradigital approach. You have siloed platforms, varying ad formats, disparate buying and selling processes that are all creating friction within the advertising space, because what's happening is all of these different ways of advertising are popping up, and people are trying to find a happy medium between the old way that they used to media buy, the way that they used to do research and analytics, and kind of the new way of doing it. So what happens is you have these companies that are trying to do advertising in a tradigital sense, but their mentality is fragmented between 5 or 6 different things, because they're purchasing traditional media in one way and viewing it that way. They're purchasing digital media in another way and viewing it that way. They're doing their production a third way and they're viewing it that way. And they're trying to fit square pegs into round holes, creating a cohesive campaign. So what this told us right here for 2017 is get back to the basics. Focus on putting together a full campaign, whatever platforms you use, however you choose to go about getting your message out there, put together the campaign cohesively and go back to the basics of measuring the base analytics, the impressions, the clicks, the click-through rate, the view-through rate, and start viewing this not as a bunch of different platforms, but at the height of television, people were viewing their analytics and their advertising, even because then you had outdoor media, you had experiential media, but they still were able to come together and view the analytics and view the way that they advertise in a cohesive way.
Now here's something else I want to point out, and it's interesting how data collection has actually kind of taken a traditional approach. You think of data collection, you think of Gallup polls, Nielsen data, but with digital advertising, it has actually made data more accessible and cheaper. It's become more efficient to collect. It's become easier. It's become more readily available. So if I want, a demographic report or an audience data collection source of something, I don't have to get on the phone and call a bunch, 100 different people and say, "What do you think about this kind of product?" It's literally Google it, or I have that data already collected from an ad campaign I ran for, let's say, a roofer in Lubbock.
So it becomes a whole lot easier to basically get back to the basics. People just need to know how to use that, and that's where bringing on a professional is really, really important to not just be able to say, well, I can buy television and buy digital and do all this stuff and manage it all, because there are professionals out there. The agency business has changed a lot, and a lot of agencies have adapted to be able to do this successfully, to be able to place whatever their client's business is within the proper context, to not use all 14, 15, 16, 17 different platforms that they see as being out there for them to utilize, but to use the 4 or 5 that will actually get them ROI, that will be trackable, that'll be analytical.
Right. Just because it's out there doesn't mean it needs to be used.
Yeah.
It may not be the right platform.
And I think for 2017, we've seen a lot of this take place, and I think this is a pretty accurate weather report for advertising, particularly digital advertising, but also advertising in general so far in 2017. So I think that this same group, ComScore, is going to start putting out their 2018 forecasting pretty soon. So we'll be sure to look into that as well and follow up with you guys with what we find.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that does it for today.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you soon.
Bye.